How's it going, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I've got 3 tips that's going to make you a better HVAC installer. Let's do some work.
This video is brought to you by TrueTech Tools, quality tools, essential support.
And by RLS, original, patented, proven. You're upset. We're going to get you fixed up real quick. Ooh, look at that. Alright, so this one's rated for a 40. And looks like we got 22 on the compressor side. And then on the fan side should be 5. And basically nothing there, so. We'll get a 40/5, get that replaced and see if everything turns on. All right, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and hook up the new capacitor before we actually get it all secured, just to make sure this thing is gonna turn on. I already noticed that the condenser coil is really dirty, so I'm just gonna get it fired up. If it turns on, everything amps out well, then we're just gonna turn the power right back off, pull everything apart, clean this coil really nice, and then get this secured properly. So, alright, so we hook up that to Herm motors. Compressor run load amp is 13.5, and outdoor fan motor is 0.8. So make sure we are within spec on that. Probably the main thing is the compressor. Contactor sounds like it needs to be replaced too. It's a little loud. So that's the fan. 0.8. 0.8. And if I can reach. Almost 9.5 on the compressor. All right, while Trevor's over there cleaning that condenser coil, I'm going to give you tip number 1, and that is being prepared for your jobs ahead of time. So what does that mean? A great example is keeping your van or truck organized. Make sure it's nice and clean for the day ahead of you. Making sure you have all the parts and materials or tools that you're going to need to do that job. That way, when you're getting out there, you're not scrambling around trying to figure out, oh, I don't have this part or that tool. So staying on top of your organization is key. And secondly is ask questions to your supervisor, to your salesman. Hey, what job are we going to be doing tomorrow? So that way you can be prepared for what it is that you're going to be doing. That way, if you need to bring maybe an extra shirt, if you're going to be crawling around a nasty crawl space, whatever it is, you can be prepared. And what I like to do on every install is I pull up the Blue On app and I'll type in the model number for whatever unit that I'm going to be installing. And I'm going to pull up the install manual. And what that's going to allow me to do is look at return size opening, supply opening, copper line set sizing. So that way I can make sure that I have the proper return box, the proper supply transition, whatever it is, I can be prepared for the job. So I highly recommend that. If you don't have the Blue On app already, go ahead and download it. It's free. And then you can plug in whatever model number that you're going to be working on and pull up that manual. Make sure that you're going to be installing it right. So that way, the morning of, whenever you go to the shop to load up the equipment, whatever it is, you can say, hey, I don't have the proper return box, or I don't have the right size flex for this particular unit. It all just boils down to being prepared for the job at hand. So that's tip number 1. All right, so we got the condenser cleaned, the drain line vacuumed out, new contactor, new dual run capacitor. So now we're just checking the charge on it, making sure everything looks okay. All right, so that job's complete. We got the contactor replaced, the capacitor replaced, the outdoor coil clean, vacuum out the drain line. That's just some things I like to do while I'm there, even though it's not an actual problem, but vacuum out the drain line takes, 30 seconds, so might as well. But anyway, did the temperature drop, checked the superheat and subcooling, everything looks really good. So we're gonna move on, call it done. So now we gotta head on over to our next job. It's gonna be a project that we've been working on where we've been installing a split system. We gotta run some gas lines for the house. So for the water heater, the range, the fireplace, all of that. So we're gonna head that way and start working on that. All right, so we're gonna be working on the gas line today, and we gotta make a penetration right there to go outside. This is gonna be a propane setup, so the tank will be right on this side of the house. So for today, we gotta just stub it out and cap it off, and the propane company does the rest. But we're gonna come in, we're gonna come down the wall, and we're gonna have a manifold right here, and that way there's 3 valves that they can control from right here. And then we'll run flexible line into the crawl space over to where they're gonna go. But yeah, that's what we're working on today, is getting the manifold installed and mounted. There'll be a tankless water heater right here. So we just gotta get all of our fittings set up on the table on how we're gonna build our manifold and get it all set up. All right, so I got Trevor downstairs hooking up that manifold, getting all that piped in and getting it ready. And I'm about to go out and cut the hole to penetrate through the wall. But I want to go ahead and give you tip number 2, and that's going to be taking ownership of your jobs. Let me explain what I mean by that. So I see a lot of people all the time, they only do what they're asked or what they're told to do. They don't take any initiative to take ownership of the job and figure out what the details are, or should something be changed. Or, just depends on the situation, obviously. But having that perspective of like when you go onto a job, you are looking at it from a point of view that you are taking it on and it is now your baby and you want to make sure that it's done correctly. So that's what I mean by that. Now, what's some examples on how we can take ownership? The first thing that comes to mind is paying attention to details. So as soon as you pull up to the job, understanding what the customer's needs are. Let's say, depending on where you're parked, are you going to be in the way? Do you have drop cloths to protect the flooring? Do you have, again, the parts or the tools that you need to do the job? So it's all of those details involved that that you really need to have to make sure you're doing the job to the best of your ability, and the customer is going to get what they paid for. So again, it goes back to paying attention to details, no matter what's going on. So if you're down in the basement and you're working on something and you notice something's not right, whether it has to do with the HVAC system or not, but you need to take ownership of that particular project. And another way of taking ownership on a project is just seeing things through. And what I mean by that is when you're doing a job and you're doing an installation, make sure everything is complete. Don't cut any corners. Right? I don't care if it's picking up trash or if it's walking the job when you're done, just to make sure that you didn't leave any materials behind, or no stone unturned, if you will. Right? Make sure you leave that job looking either better than it was when you arrived or just as good. But that's what I mean by seeing it through. You want to make sure that you are picking up after yourself. You aren't leaving trash. Or did you check out that drain line, right? That's a big deal out here in the South. Make sure you don't have a bunch of sags. So if you have a system up in the attic, take the extra time. If the drain line goes down into the crawl space before it exits out, go down there, inspect it, check it out. Make sure that there's no bellies in it, because that's gonna cause a problem down the road. So for me, that's taking ownership of the job. People are not telling you to do that. You are doing it all on your own. Vacuuming out the drain line on a new install. So if you have an existing system and you're swapping it out, vacuum out that drain line. because you know that can be a problem down the road and you don't want that on your job. So that is another way that we can really take ownership of the jobs. And another way is to own up to your mistakes, right? We all make mistakes all the time. Now, depending, they could be small, they could be big, whatever it is. But the idea around it is you want to own up to them and you want to face them and you want to accept them, because that really is the only way that you're going to learn and move forward. I'm a big firm believer that that's truly how we learn things in life, is by making mistakes, and then we figure out what we did wrong and we grow and we learn from there. So if you did something on a job, you accidentally broke something or cracked something, or you didn't quite install it right and you knew you should have, or maybe you didn't know. Either way, own up to it and say, you know what, I made a mistake, either to the customer or to your supervisor, whoever it is, and say, you know what, I'm gonna own that mistake, but I'm gonna learn from it and it's not gonna happen again. That's growth. So taking ownership on your jobs, super important. All right, so there is our manifold. The original intention was to use this unistrut to put one there and then one there with some unistrut clamps. But as you can tell, we didn't have the proper nipple to come out. We needed like a 7.5 or 7 inch. We only had an 8. So I'm just gonna get the deeper unistrut and I think it's gonna be perfect. It would push in, but then that vertical piece is not going to be level off the wall. So anyhow, I think that turned out pretty good. So the water heater will end up going right here. So once that's mounted, we'll pipe that over, and then they should be coming to, I'm actually hiring somebody to cut this out because I don't want to do it. It's going to take me forever. That's solid block. So anyhow, once that's cut out, we're going to run our flexible lines off these two through that opening into the crawl space. So for right now, we're in good shape. All right, so for the third and final tip of today is going to be just taking pride in your work, right? Just making it look amazing. Obviously, we want to make sure that the equipment is functioning properly like the manufacturer recommends, but we also want the work to look really good. I like to say HVAC art, because at the end of the day, this is our art form. And why not display what we love to do, the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into our work? Why not make it look amazing? So people, when the customers look at it, they're like, wow, that looks really good. You really care about the work that you're doing, so that really goes a long way. So if you're constantly thinking about how it looks as well as it functions, you're going to be constantly pushing that envelope on what is capable and what you're doing. Like right now, there's a few guys on Instagram, and that's all that I'm seeing is they're constantly raising that level of what is possible and what things look like and how they operate at the same time. So so that's going to be the third tip, is just really taking a lot of pride in your work, because ultimately that's going to be pushing you further and further into doing better, better, and better. And then also really take some time to think about what it is that we're doing at the end of the day. We are creating comfort for people in their homes or in their place of work. So you really should be proud that you're serving people in your community and that you are part of something bigger than just fixing the air conditioner or replacing it, whatever it is. View it something bigger than that, because I promise you, once you really start to feel that, you will want to do better and better and better. So anyhow, that's the 3 tips for today. I really hope you got something out of it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until next time, we'll see you later.